All right. Happy Saturday morning. Here for episode number 96 of Toilets to Titles. I am your host, John Sheps. You can find me on the Twitter at Coach Sheps. And with me, my guy, we just discussed this. I think he's got the award for most guest appearances on Toilets to Titles ever. We're going into year two, and I have to believe he's been on the show at least 15 times. All right, so he's doing a lot of work for us. So if we ever make it big, we got to send something his direction. And that is Shane Hallam of DraftCountdown.com at Shane P. Hallam on the Twitter. Shane, how we doing?
I'm doing good. I got to be up there, right? At the very least. But no, you guys do a great job, and I've enjoyed being part of all these shows in the community and getting to know you and Justin and all the guys pretty well. So I appreciate you having me back for sure.
Yeah, man. Today we're what are we? We week 11 of the NFL season. So we're a little bit over the halfway point. I reached out to you, I want to say about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We had you on, I think, at the end of the offseason to discuss your mock. So now we have your latest NFL draft, mock draft. And it's always hard for me to type in or say NFL draft, mock draft. Is it just an NFL mock draft? If you just say NFL mock draft, do people get it? Or do you have to throw in NFL draft, mock draft? Because you got to say draft twice.
Yeah, I think NFL mock draft is good for the internet. The Google really likes NFL draft mock draft. Yeah. So, because people will search just like NFL draft mock sometimes, or but I think NFL mock draft is good.
And so we got a question from Chris's videos. I'm sorry, Shane. He wants to know, is Clyde or Darryl playing for Kansas City this week? It sounds like Clyde's practiced. You know what I mean? I think it's going to come up to the minute. If you have both, clearly be ready. But I would be ready to have a backup because I'm not going to believe Clyde is playing until I get that alert Sunday morning from Sleeper that, hey, he's expected to go. Shane, you got any thoughts on this? Or
I think it's going to be close. I actually kind of think they might sit him one more week. It seems like a lot of teams are doing that. Like they come back to practice and then we kind of sit them down. So, but I don't know, Darrell Williams, I'm probably going to play regardless, to be honest with you.
As big as we think this matchup is, it's not a division game. It's not a conference game. This is a game for pride, and it's to see where these teams are. They both want to see where are we, because we are getting close to the playoffs. Kind of we talked about it's week 10 or week 11. We're right around the road from the playoffs. So these teams want to gauge where they are. But they also probably don't want to go crazy with pushing guys out there if they don't have to, because this game, at the end of the day, really doesn't mean all that much. The Chiefs are coming off a win versus the Raiders. They got to beat the Chargers. They got to beat their division opponents, the Broncos. Cowboys, really, they're not that. So I wouldn't be surprised either if they set them. All right. But anyway, Shane, we're here. We're talking NFL draft, mock draft, and I am very excited. So last year, things went very well for me in the Dallas Cowboys. And I had to push you. And this year, I didn't push you in any direction. Like, Shane, you can just fly. Just select a great selection for my Dallas Cowboys. Just go do your thing. And you're pretty spot on. Every year, you knock it out of the park. You're one of the best in the business. So we're lucky to have you on. So I think we should just jump right into this, Shane. So why don't you describe or list, rather, your first 5 picks, and then tell me a little bit about these players and how you think they'll fit in the organization they're landing with.
Sure. So this order's a little bit off from what it is right now, but pretty close. Number 1, the Detroit Lions. I have taken Kayvon Thibodeau, edge from Oregon. Number 2, the Houston Texans, Evan Neal, offensive tackle from Alabama. The New York Jets at number 3, Jordan Davis, defensive lineman from Georgia. 4, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Kyle Hamilton, safety, Notre Dame. And number 5, the Philadelphia Eagles from the Miami Dolphins, Derek Stingley, the corner from LSU.
So it looks like bigs definitely dominate the top of this draft. Thibodeau has probably been the consensus number 1 for some time now, and I think after that is where there's going to be questions. Now, Derek Stingley from LSU, phenomenal freshman year, big drop-off, his sophomore campaign. You think teams are going to be concerned, or you think there's enough on film that teams are going to be like, we need this guy?
I think there's enough there. I could see kind of the Patrick Surtain range, right? Kind of going, around 10th ish, depending on how it goes. But teams do need corners. This is a good corner draft. But I feel like, man, every week when I watch the NFL, there's not enough cornerbacks to cover the receivers that need covered. So I think it might push him up a little bit. I also think if he can work out, he's basically done for the year. He had an injury, and I don't think it was that bad, but I think he was just kind of like, I'm out, right? Like there's no reason LSU's not.
And
great.
I don't think he finished his sophomore year either. So I believe it's back-to-back seasons that he didn't complete the season. So that's some other question marks.
Yeah, so I think the medical will be a thing, but if he can work out at the combine, I think he's going to run worst case 4.4 flat. And he's a pretty big dude for a corner at 6'1", probably almost 200 pounds. So if he does that, then I think a team's going to take him in that 5 to 10 range.
Look at Philadelphia. Look at Dallas is in their division. You got CeeDee Lamb. They got Amari Cooper. Philadelphia's already got Slay, but they need another guy. So I can definitely see them wanting to get that other corner to help them lock up those two and then try to defend the run with the rest of their personnel, because that needs to be done. So I like that. Now, Kyle Hamilton at 4, I love it. I'm a big proponent of the safety position. And this guy, he is center field. He can get sideline to sideline. He's like an eraser back there. This guy is very impressive. Some of his film is very, very impressive. It's kind of sad to see him land in Jacksonville. But they already Andrew Wigard. I guess he's a little bit of a box safety. So maybe Andrew Wigard and Kyle Hamilton will have a dynamic safety duo. So what are your thoughts of Kyle Hamilton in Jacksonville? Tell me about him.
He's a tough comp. Like my comparison for him, I know this sounds crazy, is Sean Taylor. I think he's that kind of player. And maybe is he going to be that good? I don't know. But Hamilton just does everything. It makes incredible interceptions and plays, runs across the field. That closing speed's so good, and he can play the run. So you really get it. He kind of goes back to those old like Sean Taylor, Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed kind of days of having a safety that can take over a game. I honestly don't think there's been a better safety prospect since Taylor than Kyle Hamilton. And we've had some good ones for sure, and Derwin James and Jamal Adams, but he's on a whole nother level. So 4 always feels a little high to me for a safety. But
when's the last time a safety went to top 5? Can you? I don't recall. I don't recall that happening.
I'm trying to think when.
And Derwin went 17, right? 17 or 18, right. Which that was it. Like I thought he was for sure a top 10, and that year, safeties just kept on falling. Juan Thornhill, right? Was that the same year? Juan Thornhill was like second round. I couldn't believe that one. Taylor Rapp. So teams have been pushing off the safety, but this guy, he's just so elite. Now him being 4, does that say so much about his talent level, or does that say that maybe the rest of this class, is it him or is it them? You know what I mean? Like a boyfriend breaking up with the girlfriend thing. Is it like, it's not me, it's you? Or is it all him?
I think it's a little bit of both. So I think he is really good. The last safety to go top 5 was Eric Berry in 2010.
Tennessee.
So to
Kansas City.
To Kansas City, right? Yeah.
He played Tennessee. College ball. I threw you off.
My brain's trying to work early this morning. I was like,
sorry.
No. But I do think the top of the class is a little bit weak. And I think that's part of the issue. Now, I think it's a good draft. It's very deep. I think you're going to see the 4th, 5th, 6th round picks be much better than last year's. But this top 5 is tough. Like number 1, Kayvon Thibodeau, probably Evan Neal and Jordan Davis are in that mix. And like after that, it's like, yeah. So I do think this kind of top 10-ish is going to be difficult. I don't think teams are going to love the talent that's there. Even as good as Kyle Hamilton is, now do you take the elite player at a position that maybe isn't something, safety is not usually highly thought of? That's going to be a big question.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a luxury pick. You know what I mean? And I think it's going to depend on how much control the coach has, because a coach, I think, is going to want Kyle Hamilton for sure. He's the guy. For a coach, that's a coach's dream. You put him back there, let him control your defense out of Notre Dame. So let's see if the GM lets the coach fly now. So you have a safety in the top 5 and you have a center in the top 10. So these are, these guys must be studs. So I'm going to read off 6 through 10. Miami's taking Charles Cross, offensive tackle out of Mississippi State at 6. The Giants are taking George Karlaftis, edge out of Purdue at 7. The Jets are taking Tyler Linderbaum, the center from Iowa at 8. The Giants are back on the clock. That's excellent for them. 2 picks in 3 selections. They're taking Trevor Penning, offensive tackle, Northern Iowa at 9. And Washington football team at 10, taking Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pittsburgh. I like that. I like that. I was on with Waldman the other day and the Australians from our show Down Under Dynasty, and we were talking about quarterbacks that could be taken first. And I was saying, put money on that guy because I also feel like the rest of the world ain't there. So the odds are probably decent if you are a gambling person to say that Pickett is going to be the first quarterback taken. All right, so tell me about these selections 6 through 10. Why don't you start with Pickett? All right, at 10 to Washington.
Let's start there. He's my QB3, and I don't know if he'll really rise above. He could maybe rise up to QB2 depending on how his offseason goes for me. But I think teams are going to like the experience. I think they're going to like the range of throws in a more pro style offense. His offensive coordinator was a QB coach in the NFL, so this is a player that has an NFL pedigree for a couple of years. Even though he wasn't thought of as a first round pick, we weren't talking about him. I mean, he was a draftable prospect. He had already accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl last year before he decided to go back to school. Was going to be a third day guy. Peyton Manning's the guy that convinced him to return to school, which is really an interesting story. So like Pickett's really had this big development, but he has all those tools to throw on the run, to throw, outside the pocket. I think it's going to depend on the team, but I think if you have a team that's a little more traditional in nature, that, has a guy that, in my opinion, I think he's a more mobile Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones' success is going to help Kenny Pickett in this draft process. And there are teams that are going to see that and say, okay, I have Washington. I have the defensive personnel. We can get that together. I have a running back. I have a top-end receiver. The offensive line's young and developing. I can put this guy here and not make him do too much, and we can win games. And I think that's why Pickett, in my opinion, is going to be heavy in consideration, kind of in this 10 to 15 range.
He's had some decent wins this season for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, if you look at their schedule, I mean, beating Tennessee early in the season. Tennessee's not all that great, but that's the SEC, September 11th. So teams were, people really didn't know what Tennessee was. All right, so beating them and then beating Virginia Tech in Virginia Tech, never easy. All right, and then he beat Clemson. Miami was a tough loss, but a great game. And then beating North Carolina. Sam Howell in a shootout. That was like the matchup that everyone was kind of hoping that Matt Corral versus Malik Willis was going to be. That's what we got between North Carolina and Pittsburgh. That was a real game. So he's got some good games this season, 8-2. Finishing versus Virginia and Syracuse. So we'll see how far they rise, but they're at 20 now. So now, with Pickett being at 10, I also, when you mentioned Mac Jones, I also, remember Mac Jones, there was buzz that he was talked about top 4, top 5, and a lot of people, pundits, were shocked. And I wonder how much the shock from the world about San Francisco thinking about taking Mac Jones affected San Francisco from taking Mac Jones. I feel like because of that, like you're saying about Mac Jones, I wouldn't be surprised if someone in the top 5 likes this cat and is like, I am not going to be bullied into passing on this guy. Because again, look at the success of Mac Jones. If you think this guy can do that, even if he's not all that flashy, if you're certain, they might say it with their chest and they might take him. I mean, Detroit, I know they're at 1, but Detroit needs a quarterback. All right? Like they need a quarterback. I know you can't pass on Thibodeau, but they're in like purgatory right now. I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Detroit falls in love with this guy early. They're not going to be talked out of it, and they take it just because they feel like they could just slot this guy in and be steady Eddie at the quarterback, for 10 years.
It could happen. I think we always could see those quarterbacks get pushed up, and I think there are a number of quarterbacks this year that, if you told me, hey, this guy's going 1 overall, any of these top 4 QBs, I'd be like, okay, I could see it. I think the benefit of Detroit is they have a later first-round pick. They're going to have the Rams pick. So right. if the quarterbacks are going to fall a little bit because no one loves them, then they have a shot. I think Houston's a team that doesn't need a quarterback. If they like Davis Mills, if they like the development, they could wait. And then honestly, the rest of these teams right now in the top 10, they aren't that bad. Yeah, they aren't that bad in terms of the quarterback position. You got Philly, you have Miami, you have Jacksonville, you have the Jets. Maybe the Giants are a team. So I think we could see the quarterbacks fall a little bit because they're not elite, and you have teams that don't necessarily need them or going to have some options later in the draft.
I could see the Giants with 7 and 9 moving up. Like you have the Giants taking Karlaftis out of Purdue. I could see them moving up to take Thibodeau. Detroit moving back a little bit, getting their quarterback and getting an offensive lineman. I really would not be surprised. Like I might even just say that's going to happen right now. I think the Giants are going to move up. I could see Detroit moving back. They have more needs. Now, can you tell me a little bit about Karlaftis out of Purdue?
He's one of those players that stepped in as a freshman in a smaller Big Ten school. Purdue's not Ohio State or Michigan, and was absolutely dominant 2 years ago. And he's kind of kept that up. And this year, maybe his best year that he's had, just getting into the backfield. Purdue's defense is pretty bad, but Karlaftis has been the guy. He had probably his worst game of the season last week against Ohio State, where they really game plan the whole offense around him and kind of attacking him, doing the screen game at him. They were blocking him, sometimes double teaming him, sometimes didn't block him at all. They were very purposefully aware of where he was. And to me, that always tells me when a big team like that is game planning the whole offense around you, like you're a dude, and because that can't happen in the NFL. So he's a pass rusher. He could stand up. He can even kick inside. He can play a little 5-tech. He's one of the most versatile front 7 players in this draft.
You have any pro comps for him? I don't want to put you into a corner there. I'm trying to see it in my head.
I'm trying to think, because I think he's a little bit kind of unique in how they utilize him, because he's 6'4", 275 pounds, but
it's a big boy.
But often kind of is used like kind of a 3-4 pass rusher, stand up guy,
like a TJ Watt a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has some of that in him. Of I hate to be like, oh, here's the best.
I gotta throw on the film. Here's
the best NFL player, NFL defensive player. Like that's who he's like. But I think he has that kind of ability, depending on where he goes, to be used in that way.
All right, awesome. All right, let's read 11 through 15 here. The Eagles are taking DeMarvin Leal, defensive lineman, Texas A&M. Falcons are taking Aiden Hutchinson, edge out of Michigan. Minnesota's taking Kingsley Enagbare. I hope I said that right. Edge out of South Carolina. Denver's taking Matt Corral, quarterback, Mississippi. The Eagles are taking Darian Kennard, offensive tackle, Kentucky. So in this 5-pick range, who's your guy? Let me describe some of these players in here for me.
My favorite's Aiden Hutchinson, the edge from Michigan, and it's a really good edge class. And he is such a good athlete. He's going to be one of those players after the combine. You're going to be like, wait, what? You're going to look at those numbers and be amazed, because he's 6'6", 280 pounds. And I mean, I think he can run a 4.6. He's going to be that kind of guy, like a 280 that's just blazing. So Michigan has 2 potential edge rushers that it could go in the first round. I think the other one I have going early second. And Hutchinson, got hurt last year. I think he would have been a first-round pick last season. And if he was healthy, probably would have came out. And he went back to school and has just been ripping offensive line. So you want an athletic pass rusher. I think he's maybe one of the more bust-proof guys. And I feel like Atlanta every year needs a pass rusher. They've never drafted a good one. So maybe this could be the year.
All right. What about Matt Corral? Quarterback 2 taken here. What are your thoughts on Matt Corral?
He's my QB1 in this class. I think he has all the questions I had coming into the year he answered. Decision-making, quick decision-making, pocket pressure, being able to feel the pocket. He's answered those. He has such a quick release, really good downfield passer. He can run. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he's he's a pretty good runner and can get out. You can have some design things for him. Though they've been trying to keep him more in the pocket, kind of showcase that NFL talent and ability. And he stood up. He does not have a great team around him this season. His running back Jerry Neely came in hurt. His receivers aren't NFL guys, or maybe low end special teams guys. And he's carrying that team to be one of the top 5 in the SEC. So I think he's showing everything he needs to. I wonder how teams will view him, because he's kind of has everything's good, but nothing's elite. And that's sometimes that can be a problem when evaluating, and teams fall in love with certain traits.
I was talking with Nate from Toilets to Titles the other day, and we were talking about Matt Corral. We both like him as well. We both feel like we'd love to see him go at like the end of the first, early second, not have, so much demanded from him early on, because I really think if in the right situation with some patience, I'd love to see what this guy can do. I don't want to see him go top 10 and be thrown into a tough situation day one. I want to see teams be patient with him, because, I like what I've seen from him as well. All right, let's move on to 16 through 20. We got the Cleveland Browns taking Garrett Wilson, Ohio State. That's your team there. Cincinnati Bengals taking Kaiir Elam, quarterback, Florida. Carolina Panthers taking Kenyon Green, guard, Texas A&M. The Chargers are taking Jahan Dotson, wide receiver, Penn State. And the Saints are taking Malik Willis, quarterback, out of Liberty. So I want to hear about Wilson. I want to hear about Elam. And I want to hear about Willis. So you got your work cut out in these 5.
Garrett Wilson has had such a good year at Ohio State. I mean, since his freshman year too, like if you can't sense a theme with a lot of these picks, it's guys that have been crushing it for 3 years. And that's what Wilson's done. His separation ability is so good that, I think he's going to have success, and he can play an X, a Y, or he can play, in the slot. He's really versatile. I think the Browns need that player with Odell Beckham gone. I mean, they just need some elite weapon there. So I think first receiver off the board is in his wheelhouse. It's not guaranteed, but he's in that mix. Kaiir Elam is, I think, probably a debatable first round pick, and obviously,
is he related to Matt or Abram, or both?
I think he's related. I know he's related to Matt. He might be related to both if Abram's in there, but I think he's cousins with Matt Elam. And usually these Florida corners are like very finesse. That's how I feel when I watch them, and he is not. He's a jam, like physical corner. It hasn't been his best season, and Florida struggled in general to get pass rush, but I do think his coverage ability still is really good. So he could be a player that falls a little bit further. And the Bengals have had a good secondary this year, but I think they're going to have some holes there moving forward. And then Malik Willis is the wild card, I think, of this first round. I mean, he could go number 1 overall. Detroit could say, give me that guy that, has some of those Cam Newton type tendencies, right? Can run, former Auburn guy, can great arm. Like, he has the high end traits that you want in a quarterback, where he could be an elite runner with an offense built around him. He has the big arm to throw downfield, which we usually don't see those two things combined. The problem is he has not been very good this year, in my opinion, as a passer. I mean, he struggled against UL Monroe. That was one of his worst games. Like, that's the game where you got to destroy UL Monroe.
That's where you make your highlight film.
Right? Yeah, his big problem is he has a hitch in his release. It's slow, and the offensive line's not great at Liberty. So when you get rushed like you did against Mississippi, you're going to get sacked. You're going to be holding the ball too long. I don't think his decision making's great. I think there's just a lot of still developmental issues that he needs. Maybe the Senior Bowl, he comes in and gets some of that NFL coaching and can do that. But ultimately, I think the Saints would be an intriguing spot. Sean Payton always wants, I think, to be the smartest guy, to be like, oh, I'm going to take this player and mold him into, this is Taysom Hill on steroids, right?
Right.
And so I think that could be a fit.
All right, awesome. All right, 21 through 25. We got the Raiders taking Jameson Williams, wide receiver, Alabama. Patriots taking Traelon Burks. That's my wide receiver 1 out of Arkansas. Pittsburgh Steelers taking Ahmad Gardner, cornerback, Cincinnati. Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Andre Booth, cornerback, Clemson, and the Kansas City Chiefs taking Drake London, wide receiver, Southern Cal. I want to start with Drake London because this offseason, it seemed like he was a very polarizing prospect. There were people on two sides with Drake London. So sell me on Drake London as a first rounder.
My comp for him is Mike Evans. I think he's that kind of big, downfield player.
Can he separate? Scares me.
Absolutely. That's always the question.
With big guys who are, I'm gun shy, Shane. I am gun shy. So sell me.
Look, here's the thing. He's playing the Pac-12. He's playing with Keaton Slovis, the quarterback, who's not very good, and a freshman in Jackson Dart, and is breaking records, is absolutely dominant against NFL corners. So I think that's what sells it. Now, if he fractured his ankle, that's going to be a big question mark. I think that could push him out of the first round. But just his body control and his ability to locate and find the football and, be physical with it, because he can get downfield. I think that's the difference with a lot of the guys that you and I have liked in the past that haven't gotten that draft capital.
Right.
Is London isn't just this kind of throw it up body guy, but he can find his way in zone coverage. He moves well, he moves his body well. He moves that body well. So I hope he can work out, because I think if he can work out and showcase, okay, this is someone who has the athletic ability, then he can do some things.
Man, I'm scarred by Kelvin Harmon. Forever scarred by Kelvin Harmon. All right, Traelon Burks and Jameson Williams. Tell me a little bit about both of them. Jameson Williams is a guy I didn't hear anything about coming into this year. It was all about John Mechie. So why don't you tell me about Williams and then tell me about your thoughts on Burks?
Williams, the Ohio State transfer. So I think people didn't know, what was going to happen. And he's been their wide receiver one, and he is a size, speed guy. That's what Jameson Williams is going to bring to the table. 6'2", 190, is going to run the 4.3s. That's definitely what his game is, and that's what the Raiders now need with Henry Ruggs, out of there. So I think it would be a good fit. But I think teams are going to like the speed, the production at Alabama. All these things are kind of lining up for Jameson Williams to be a first round pick, even if everyone's probably going to be a little gun shy about having him in their top 3 or 4 receivers.
What about Burks? What do you think about Burks at Arkansas?
He's my wide receiver one. It's very, very close between him and Garrett Wilson. Like I'm struggling, but I think Traelon Burks is going to get there after the combine. If he can run a 4.5 at 6'3", 230, that's great. Now he just disappears because that Arkansas offense is just not consistent enough, and so he has these stretches where he's not getting targets. He's covered. Yeah, so I worry about that. If
the Chargers let Mike Williams walk, man, I'd love to see Traelon Burks come in and take that role, like be right there. Still keep Keenan Allen on the outside and let him play that Michael Thomas role. You know what I mean? That Mike Williams has been benefiting from this season. I'd love that.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice. All right, 26 through 29. We got Baltimore taking Bernard Rayman out of Central Michigan, offensive tackle. The Cowboys taking Devontae Wyatt, defensive lineman out of Georgia. Arizona Cardinals taking Perion Winfrey, defensive lineman out of Oklahoma. And the Buffalo Bills taking Nakobe Dean, linebacker, Georgia. When I read that name, Nakobe Dean, I think of The Matrix and Niobe. So I like it. All right, so I want to hear about Nakobe Dean strictly because of that. Then tell me a little bit about new Dallas Cowboy, Devontae Wyatt.
Nakobe Dean is in competition for that best linebacker spot this year. He's been
best name in the draft.
As well. Look, it's good. He's been, to me, I know Jordan Davis gets the love, but Dean's been the central cog of the great Georgia defense because he's been playing in coverage, has interceptions, can pass rush. He kind of has that trifecta with some good tackling technique. He's been there a while, been pretty consistent. So this might be a little bit low for him. Whereas the rest of this 26 through 32 range, I think, are fringe first-round picks. I think he's probably clearly in there. Devontae Wyatt is probably a little bit high for him, but the Cowboys and any late first-round team, I think sometimes will take a guy they like that fits the defense. He's kind of the second, sometimes third fiddle on that defensive line, that kind of three-man front for Georgia this year. And you have a guy that's like 320 pounds that moves very quickly, kind of agile wise. They have Jordan Davis who kind of two gaps. And so Wyatt's a lot of kind of pin his ears back and get some interior pressure. And
At 320 pounds.
Yeah, and that's what he's been really good at. Like he has kind of that lower drive strength, and enough athletic ability to kind of collapse the pocket well. So Georgia's defense, I mean, if you haven't watched it out there, is wild. And that defensive line's going to have three guys taken within probably the top 75 picks.
It scares me a little bit because I feel like the last time that happened was with Clemson. And I don't think any of those defensive linemen have so is it, it's hard to tell if they're balling out because there's so many good players around them, or if they're, just that talented. And we won't know, until we see them at the next level. But I'm definitely a little gun shy because of the way those Clemson players, what was it, Dexter Lawrence? Who was the one the Raiders took?
Cleveland Farrell and Christian
Wilkins. So, I definitely feel a little gun shy.
Yeah, the only difference is none of these are the pass rushers. They are all the big uglies up front, so that might be a little bit safer.
All right, and finally, the last three picks. Green Bay Packers taking Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State. Tennessee Titans in the Super Bowl, I like that. Christian Harris, linebacker, Alabama. And the Detroit Lions taking Sam Howell, quarterback, North Carolina. Now, Christian Harris, I feel like Bama linebackers have come out, but none of them have been, like, elite. I really liked Reuben Foster, couldn't stay healthy. I think he had the biggest potential. Rashaan Evans has been good. Who's the cat that went to, I think he's in Buffalo, or he might be in New York now. I can't think of his name. He's a thumper. Big guy, not overly fast. His name will come to me in a little bit, but I think he's playing for the Giants right now. But anyway, when I think of Alabama linebackers, I hear, I think of promise, and then, just steady Eddie. Nothing really elite. What's up with Christian Harris? How will he pan out, you think?
I think that's a fair assessment. Like he's not an elite player, but he's a really good player that plays within that system. When he kind of filled in 2 years ago as a freshman, he came in blazing, was the best linebacker on that team. Last year kind of fell back. This year, there's a lot more going on with the defense. It's a little more complex. And so, he's calling the shots. He's a good downhill tackler. I think he's good against the run. I think he has some athletic coverage ability, but he's never consistently like dominant or good. I don't watch him and say, oh man, like this guy's an NFL guy. But it's hard for me to find some major flaws in his game. So that usually translates into like top 50-ish, like you said, kind of like a Reuben Foster, Rashaan Evans, I think are in that.
Reggie Ragland was the other guy.
Oh yeah. He was all run stuff. And so I think Harris is a little more athletic to give you a little more in coverage, which might push him in the first round. But yeah, I just don't think he's a great, elite player.
All right, and we foreshadowed this Sam Howell pick when we were talking about the Lions earlier, and I was talking about Pickett. So you said, the Lions have another pick, so they could wait. So the Detroit Lions take Sam Howell. How does this fit work? What do you think?
This might be my favorite fit of the first round. I think when you have the Dan Campbell intensity as a head coach and the passion that he brings, and you watch Sam Howell this year when he's had 4 of his weapons drafted last season. They have one receiver and nothing. Ty Chandler, the running back's okay, but Sam Howell is running at a much higher clip, and not because they're designing it. It's because he wants first downs, and he's lowering his shoulder, like things you do not want him to do as an NFL team. But he's showing that passion, like he wants to win. And I think that's the kind of mentality that's going to endear him to the NFL. It hasn't been the best year for him, I think, because he only really has one receiver that's any good. And so it's been difficult for him to have success, but he's still North Carolina's still a good team, and it's still a dangerous offense that can put up points. So I think late first, he's my QB2 in this class. I like him a lot. But I think he's going to go a little bit later in the first round. And I think this fit with the Lions, man, if they could get him with that second pick, it could be a slam dunk.
All right, I got some questions from the guys at Toilets to Titles. All right, you think Rattler could be a surprise to Claire? Like, that's the question. My question on top of that is, What do you think is more likely, he declares or he transfers?
I think he could. I think it's more likely he transfers. Just with the kind of the open portal now, it's a lot easier for him to know he can get there. I think if he declares,
Ole
he
Miss, replace Corral, go down there with Kiffin.
It could, it could happen. It's so tough because like there's a lot of freshmen, sophomores I like, first, second year quarterbacks that are sitting there waiting, and it's like, well, but if Rattler becomes available and you're Lane Kiffin, do you say, no, I'm going to go Luke Altmaier,
Yeah, Lane Kiffin, man, all in. Put the chips in. Let's have another Heisman campaign. They campaign for Corral. Let's campaign for Rattler.
So I think that's more likely. If he does declare, I think we're looking at a third day, just upside swing.
Excellent. All right. The guys are saying, in your mock, it doesn't have a quarterback off the board until pick 9. How likely do you think that is? Like, teams are usually desperate for quarterback. You think they could wait that long? You think that due to this year's class, the lack of a top name guy, you think, like, how likely do you think it is that happens?
I think it's 50-50 maybe that we don't have one taken, super early. It's been a while since that's happened. And so I would imagine that someone's going to get popped up, but maybe this is kind of like 2013 where you just don't have that guy. And do you want to be the team that reaches for that guy?
Who's the guy that will be reached for if it happens on the spot?
Oh, I kind of think Malik Willis will be the guy if a team's going to say, I'm just going to take this toolsy player that's not ready, like EJ Manuel was in 2013. I think Malik Willis is that kind of player.
Awesome. All right. This year's rookie class, how would you rank this year's wide receiver class coming out versus last year? So this group coming out in 22 versus the group in 21.
I think top to bottom, it's better if we talk depth, which I know a lot of people won't say.
Dynasty, if you're playing Dynasty fantasy football, those picks that everyone's been saying hasn't been worth nothing. The wide receiver class is better. That's more, picking wide receivers is so safe. So safe. And Shane's telling you it's better, so you got to hold on to those picks.
Yeah, look, there's no Jamar Chase, but I think that late first, early second range where you're taking Rondale Moore and Elijah Moore this past year, now you're going to be taking Garrett Wilson, Traelon Burks, like that's better. And my suggestion, dynasty-wise, get those late seconds, get those thirds, get those fourths. This class, we saw Dez Fitzpatrick get cut as a fourth-round pick. These fourth-round picks are going to be better than the second and third-round picks last year. That's going to be the difference.
I like Rondale Moore, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do too, but I'll take Traelon Burks over him.
Hell yeah. Sign me up.
All day. So I get those later picks because this is the biggest NFL draft class in NFL draft history. Threefold, 1,500 players. It's going to be huge. So undrafted free agents are going to be better than fourth-round picks last year.
So get me Traelon Burks to the Chargers. And let's roll. Let's roll, baby. All right, everybody. Shane, it's been great having you on. I want to let everybody know, check out toiletsandtitles.com. Check out draftcountdown.com. Shane, can you tell us and the listeners about everything you guys are doing over there and why they should go check out the site?
Yeah, check out Draft Countdown. We have a podcast if you're into the NFL draft. Brian Bosarge and I are the two managing partners. We do a draft podcast every week. We had Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl on last week.
Are you going to the Senior Bowl?
I am not going to the Senior Bowl.
I could pick you up.
I know. Look, it would have been nice, but yeah, work. It's bad timing for work. One day, soon.
How was Nagy? I gotta listen to that. How was it?
It was good. We basically try to get him to name players, and he wouldn't. That was pretty much the interview, but it was it was fun, and it's definitely good. We got him drop one, and then that guy ended up getting invited, who wasn't even on our list. So I think it's worth a listen for sure. But yeah, check out the site. We've had a new article every day since August, since week 0 of the college football season. So all my rankings for 2022, 2023, 2024, I have a mock draft. So we're going hard.
Awesome. All right, everybody. So definitely go check that out. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the Toilets and Titles YouTube channel. We have about 7 episodes in season coming to you live. Tomorrow, The Blitz. I suggest you go check that out, 10:30 a.m. on our YouTube channel. That's our show driven by you, the listener. When you guys are getting ready to set those fantasy football lineups, get in the chat. Let us know your hard questions. We will answer them on the air. Joe, Mike D, and Alex. They come at you live. And also, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/toilets to titles. Tier 1 is $3 a month to get you into our group chat on Discord, 24/7 access to all the members of Toilets to Titles, all things fantasy. Anything help you need, we got you. Trades, start sits, everything. Tier 2 is $5 a month, get you into that chat, get you early access to the waiver wire episodes that Justin records every Monday night, right after Monday Night Football. So you're ahead of the game. Also get you entry into Frankenstank, which Shane is in. Shane, how's your Frankenstank team doing this year? My team is it's barely treading water.
I struggled out of the gate, and I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to win a game. And then I rounded off like 4 or 5 in a row, but just went down to Matt and lost Tom Brady. So 5-5, it's going to be tough.
Tough. All right. Well, you too could be playing in the Frankenstank League, which was, I think it was like 12 or 14 guys last year. Now it's 3 divisions of 38. Next year, we're going 5 divisions of 12. And we're going to be drafting 2 or 3 divisions in Canton at the Fantasy Football Expo. So
I will be in Canton. I will be in Canton.
Hell yeah. So then you'll be, we're going to have to like rent out a room or something. We're going to have to figure it out how we're going to do this draft. The logistics of this thing are going to be pretty insane. How are we going to do Frankenstank drafts live? Because this thing is nuts. If you don't know anything about Frankenstank, you do want to get in. So join Patreon so you can get in. Tier 3 is $10 a month, get you free entry into Frankenstank. I think it's $25 a season. So tier 3, $10, boom, you're saving $15 off the bat. Get you one-on-one roster analysis from anybody at Toilets to Titles. Again, get you into that group chat. Again, get you early access to the waiver wire episodes. We have you covered. Help us help you. Thanks again, Shane. It's been a lot of fun always, man. I look forward to these episodes. When we I set it up a few weeks ago. It's on my calendar. I'm ready to talk some draft prospects. And luckily this year, my team isn't like the Cowboys don't stink. So I'm not like counting down the days till the NFL draft like I was last year. All right, so this year it's a fun one, but the draft is always, it's hope season because you could just be filled with hope. You love your guys until the NFL draft. It's all optimism, and there's nothing better than that. So, Shane, I wish you well. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I hope your fantasy teams do great this weekend. And all of you guys listening at home, guys and girls, same. Wish you well. Stay healthy. I hope your fantasy teams do well because it's crunch time. We need to get those wins in so we can make the playoffs, all right? I will catch everybody